Hello, you are watching the Supply Chain Digital Show, brought to you by Supply Chain Digital Magazine, Procurement Magazine, and BizClick Media Group. My name is Sean Ashcroft, editor of Supply Chain Digital, and in this show we bring you all the latest news, analysis, and opinions from the world of supply chain every 2 weeks, right here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and other digital platforms. Now, joining us as usual is Procurement Magazine editor Georgia Wilson. Hi, Georgia.
Hi, Sean.
How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very well, very well. And actually, also checking in live from the US is BizClick's Chief Content Officer, Scott Birch.
Morning,
Hey,
guys.
Scott.
Well, it's morning here, but afternoon to you. How you doing?
Very well. That doesn't look much like your sort of lockdown garden shed. Where exactly are you, Scott?
It does look like it's a virtual background, but I can guarantee I am here in person. Yeah, we've been here. There's a few of us here actually. We've got a video crew, and our CEO Glenn White is here as well. This is the annual SAP Sapphire event, and this is being held in Orlando, Florida, right now. And this is the final day of three. The show hasn't started yet, as you can tell. It looks a little bit quiet because the main keynote kicks off in about half an hour. But this has been a great opportunity for us to do some interviews with some of SAP's top executives relating to sustainability, supply chain, and procurement, which is one of the reasons why I thought we'd talk about it today, and also hear about some of their new updates as well. So the CEO, Christian Klein, he took to the stage on the opening day to really talk about all the amazing new software that SAP is introducing, but also the impact that Rise with SAP, which is their cloud-based solution, the impact that is having as well. So we'll bring you a lot more about all the interviews that we've been holding here over the last few days. We're going to put those all together into a special report that will no doubt feature in supply chain and procurement magazines as well. And as I say, we've been doing loads of video. There's some amazing stands here at the show, and you may have seen our posts on LinkedIn on some of those. But we've got interviews with people behind all of SAP's offerings. So I'm going to head to the show now. The keynote on sustainability this morning features it's a panel that also includes the actress Kate Hudson. So that should be an interesting one. So you guys holding the fort back in the UK. I'll be back soon. And thanks for having me as a guest on the show. I better get back to the SAP event.
Okay, Scott, thank you very much. Have a good show. Now, a quick reminder at this point for all of you watching, please do say hello by posting in the comments section, just underneath the show. And also do vote in our LinkedIn poll. On which note, Georgia, what is our poll this week?
Yeah, so our poll this week is in what area has the Internet of Things had the biggest impact on supply chains? And the options were location tracking, contingency planning, and storage monitoring. So, Sean, what are your thoughts on the poll?
Oh, well, I mean, it's Internet of Things is such a broad topic. You could have probably added another half a dozen sort of areas in which it's making a big difference. I mean, it's a massive thing, really, the Internet of Things, for manufacturing companies to keep tabs on their assets and components, and, for companies to, if there's a weather event or a huge traffic accident, for, to plan contingencies, all this sort of live data, it's just opening up so many possibilities. So, yeah, be interested to see what our followers and readers and viewers think about that. We'll be sharing the results of that poll at the end of the show, but there's loads to talk about then. So let's start by taking a look at the latest supply chain and procurement news. So if you don't mind, George, I'll start with supply chain.
Yeah.
And one thing that caught my eye actually this week was a story. It's an Accenture report, and it's about how companies aren't focusing enough on their people and too much on tech when it comes to digital transformation. And this was a piece, it's a report written by Steve Crane, who's MD of Supply Chain Operations and Strategy at Accenture, and he says that around 70% of chief supply chain officers plan to increase digital transformation spending, and yet just 27% say they have the talent to leverage that tech. So clearly that's a problem. And it seems the problem is that there's too much focus on the technology and not enough focus on recruiting or training people to actually get the most from that technology. And it's not just that, actually. It's also because a lot of this technology, AI and machine learning in particular, does a lot of the heavy lifting, a lot of the repetitive, mundane tasks across supply chain, and that frees up staff to be more strategic in their roles. But companies are finding that people can only be strategic if they're taught how to be strategic, and that also is proving quite a challenge.
That seems like it's been quite a common theme, not just in supply chain and procurement, but across a lot of industries, that that skills shortage and training of staff and trying to close that gap.
It's a massive challenge, I think, Georgia.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that sort of progresses as we move forward and more people start to come out of the impacts of COVID.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to get to grips with it sooner rather than later, I think.
Definitely.
And I had another story as well. It's now this one, on the face of it, you might think, well, what's so special about this story? It's, a supply chain consultancy company specializing in cloud solutions, promoting a webinar. But the thing is, this company, ABM Cloud, is based in Kiev, and it's trying to carry on, business as usual, as are all companies, in Ukraine, as far as they can. But I was contacted through LinkedIn by the company's vice president of sales, Andriy Luby. I've probably completely butchered his name there, but Andriy was keen for us to promote his webinar, and I just interviewed him very briefly about what it's like running a company at the moment in Ukraine, and it's just an absolute eye-opener when you talk to people from Ukraine, just people who are trying to live their lives as normally as possible. But Andriy was saying that, his team are scattered now. So some people have fled west. Some people have fled to Poland. There's one member of teams who's actually taken up arms and is trying to work, and fight. So it just, the mind completely boggles. But their webinar is actually about how to run efficient supply chain in a world of disruption. And I can't imagine there are too many companies that are better placed to understand how to do that than this company themselves. So that, really left an impression on me.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really interesting, example of using sort of technology in these ways and using it to battle these difficult landscapes that environments that people are finding themselves in now, and it seems more now than ever before.
Exactly. I mean, we all talk about supply chain disruption and geopolitical risks and stuff, but it's easy to forget there are people actually living and working in the middle of all that as well. And anyway, Georgia, so what about procurement? What's caught your eye over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, so one piece that has sort of caught my eye recently is sort of insights from a supplier information technology company called Scoutby. They sort of discussed how 48% of procurement directors believe that innovation is equal to value creation, but however, despite sort of this increase in importance, COVID-19 has put a strain on global supply chains who have had to pause or permanently shut down innovation. So instead they've been switching to more reactive methods. So Scalpy sort of was highlighting that innovation should be sort of an obligation for procurement. They believe that a proactive approach with cross-functional collaboration is going to be needed to drive earlier engagement with suppliers and lower costs, improve sustainability, and just in general, like drive innovation and provide a quicker route to market. So it's kind of seeing that as like a central element to drive companies forward.
Innovation and collaboration are just two words you hear over and over again, aren't they? Almost irrespective of what area of business you write about or work in. That just seems to be the future, doesn't it? Well, that's really interesting, Georgia. What have you got another story that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, so my second one looked at a recent report from spend management software company Proactis, and in the report they highlighted that 40% of businesses are investing in software to tackle supply chain and procurement issues. So it kind of echoes what I was talking about in the previous one, and it was saying that with most sort of large businesses already making fundamental changes to their business habits to adapt to the impact of global disruption. Whilst it was the report continued to discuss that 90% of large businesses are redeploying, refocusing, reskilling or upskilling their workforce when it comes to digitalization, and specifically in the UK, last year there was investments of 4.8 million into digitalization alone. So yeah, it kind of just echoes what I was discussing in the previous one, that innovation and sort of technology, digitalization is a key part of sort of future successes.
Yeah, yes. I mean, when you're quoting reports and statistics, it can be a bit misleading sometimes, can't it? Because if you think that the chap from Accenture was talking about how so few companies feel that they're upskilling their staff in technology enough, and but here's another report saying that 90% of large businesses are upskilling or reskilling their workers when it comes to technology. It's I guess you really need to drill down into those reports to get granular with them, don't you, to see what's really going on. But, yeah, well, thanks for that, Georgia. And actually, at this point now, it's my pleasure to introduce our special guest, who is Ivo Rook. And Ivo is COO and president of Once, the first IoT network carrier to offer connectivity services with a worldwide low-cost flat rate. Welcome, Ivo.
Hi, Sean. Hi, Georgia.
How are you today?
All good, all good. You first traveled west, now we're going east. I'm in Eastern Europe at this moment in Latvia in our development center, where we have our software development.
Oh, wow. Wow. So it's an international lineup we have today. Thank you very much for joining us, Ivo. Now, I thought I'd begin by asking you maybe just to tell us just a little bit about what it is that that Once does. What is it you do, and who's your audience?
So first of all, I mean, it's so important to have this topic in supply chain and procurement context. Also, when you think about that, supply chain is all about coordination. And if you were to say the essence, this is what Once does. We coordinate data all around the world. It's a relatively simple story, but difficult to execute. So we work really hard to do one thing, and that is the supply chain disruption of IoT, of networking. Why do we do that? So that our customers, which would be your audience, can actually change the world. And how do we do that? Very simple. We allow our customers to collect data from sensors deployed everywhere in the world in a very simple way. And then the second thing we do is we provide them tools to help them translate their data into actionable intelligence. Now, that sounds easy. And if that would have been easy, there would not have been a place for us. But connectivity is hard, and we're trying to make it simple and predictable.
That's great. I mean, you're a low cost Internet of Things network carrier. That would seem to imply that not all network carriers are low cost. Is that the case?
It's an interesting way to put it. We don't look at ourselves as low cost. We actually look at it as fair value. We don't think that it should cost more than $10 for 10 years to connect the sensor. Because yes, we are about 50% lower cost than most of our competitors, but that doesn't mean we don't make a margin. Actually, why is that? Is because we've done the supply chain disruption. We've built a custom built, dedicated IoT network that allows us to have direct access to data from carriers all across the world, built on our own software, and then provide it back to customers in a flat rate so it becomes predictable. So they can connect a sensor for $10 for 10 years. And that actually allows many people in the supply chain to do storage monitoring, whereabout monitoring, location monitoring, and all these things seamlessly across the world.
They say that your service, Ivo, tackles challenges that too often stand in the way of mass IoT deployments. What kind of challenges are you talking about there exactly?
Well, the biggest challenge of the communication world in mobile and cellular, but also satellite and other communication protocols, is the fact that it's not a global business, it's domestic. And the problem with operators is it may work in one network, but it doesn't in the other. So when you completely decompose that and actually think of connectivity almost as simple as electricity, what you need to do is tackle a few challenges. First of all, when you want to use a tracker, activation, deactivation is hard. And we're like, well, why does it have to be? So the first thing we do is when you launch a product on our platform, it's always on already when it arrives. So this whole notion, I mean, nobody puts I always compare it to electricity. Nobody puts a socket, something in a socket and wonder if there's electricity behind. Well, why does it have to be like that in telco? So with us, our telco network is always on. Then the second thing that is very important is it's not available here but not there. It is truly global. Now, when you have consistent connectivity, behaving consistently global, the most important challenge to tackle is actually almost done, and that is that all of our features that we develop on top of it as software are working in exactly the same way all across the world, so that our customers can build applications that behave consistently across the world. Those three things are always on, global, feature transparency.
That's really interesting, Ivo. Thank you for that. Now, I'd like to ask you one final question here. I know it's difficult, to get your crystal ball out and predict what is going to happen in the future, given what's happened over the past couple of years. But what would you think your best guess is about how the next 5 years might look for IoT in general and supply chains in particular?
Well, first of all, I think it is a humble but yet very ambitious target for us to be completely invisible. I would actually be proud if a lot of companies built their applications and nobody would even realize it runs on us. I actually think that the communications industry overcomplicates communications. I actually think they need to think about it as a precious commodity that should be made available in a simple way. So I'd say in the 5 years from now that everybody can communicate sensors, people, sensors with each other, and therefore create this digital prediction that you can do to enable AI, which today is still in its infancy, as you've written about not too long ago, and I would totally agree in the supply chain. If all of that would work seamlessly without you having to think about it, just as simple today as electricity, although it's getting a bit expensive nowadays, electricity, but just to provide that layer of consistent communications that everything can communicate without a second thought, that I believe should be what this industry should inspire to do. We're far away from it. Actually, sometimes there is a tendency to go the opposite way. Make it more domestic, make it more specific to the network. No, it shouldn't be. It should be an enabling technology that allows the real differentiation, which is in the software and use cases that your customers use.
Well, that's a really fascinating insight there, Ivo. Sadly, that's all we've got time for today. But I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to join us, Ivo, and give our regards to Riga.
I will certainly do so, and it's an inspiring topic, supply chain and procurement, and we do what we can to help.
Yeah, well, I'm sure people are grateful for your help as well at the moment. Thank you very much, Ivo. Now we've got some more great content to share with you, so don't go away. But first, we're going to have a short break.
Asahi Beverages is a leader in bringing enjoyment and connection to everyday moments with the products that we produce. I'm David Baxter, Group General Manager of Direct Procurement for Asahi Beverages. Asahi Beverages is one of the leading beverage companies in Australia and New Zealand, producing quality alcohol and non-alcohol beverages with a strong portfolio of established household brands and innovative new products. We work with an array of suppliers, in which is our responsibility to ensure we build on these relationships, share our strategic initiatives so they can come on the journey with us to help meet our goals. With a strong focus on quality, we need partners who will work with us long-term, have similar sustainable goals and bring innovative ideas to the table. As a market leader, we're leading the way on sustainability. So for me, what I see is Asahi Beverages showcasing not only Australia and New Zealand, but the world on an amazing array of initiatives that we'll be launching over the next 2 years that will celebrate enjoyment and connection in a sustainable way and protect our planet.
The Supply Chain Transformation Solution can help you balance business needs with ever-growing customer expectations. Delivering on customer promises while meeting expectations on cost, growth, and sustainability is a major challenge for supply chain leaders today. In addition, visibility beyond Tier 1 suppliers is critical to building resilience in the face of global volatility. Supply chain transformation helps put marketing, sales, finance, procurement, and operations in lockstep with supply chain constraints. Integrating these functions into supply chain planning can help enterprises achieve vastly improved customer service levels and forecasts that are up to 5 times more accurate. Effort and costs are reduced with inventory levels that can be up to 30% lower. Take advantage of artificial intelligence, AI, and analytics to build smarter fulfillment capabilities. We'll bring leading technologies, such as predictive order fulfillment, to drive the right inventory through your network, in the right place at the right time, and maximize service levels. Enable your agile supply chain by optimizing the physical infrastructure and flow across networks. Leading technologies can provide visibility, optimization, and predictive analytics capabilities to deliver on increased service requirements while maintaining profitability. Maximize product innovation and minimize time to market. Bring a holistic approach to enterprise data and technologies, such as digital twin and simulation software, to enhance digital design and product ideation. Consulting at EY can help you digitally transform. Beyond efficiency and productivity, your supply chain can be more responsive to markets, sustainable, resilient to disruption, and staffed with engaged and empowered employees. Find your path to long-term value with the EY Supply Chain Transformation Solution.
Welcome back. Still to come, we have the results of our LinkedIn poll, a little bit more information on some of our upcoming events. Plus, we'll be taking a look at our latest issues of Supply Chain Digital and Procurement magazines. But first, I think it's time to say a quick hello to a few of our viewers, followers, who have joining us today. Now we have, like Supply Chain itself, a truly international audience. We've got Paul in Sierra Leone. Hello, Paul. Andrew in Kansas, in the States. Hi, Andrew. We have Dr. Aman Sinha, who is in India, works for Peregrine Solutions. And we have people from all over: Indonesia, Thailand, Italy, Brazil, Florida, South Africa. So hello to you all. Thank you ever so much for joining us and interacting with us. Now we're going to have a little look at our magazines now. So I'll start this one, Georgia, if you don't mind. So the May issue of Supply Chain Digital came out earlier in the week, and I'm going to pick a feature from this. It was a look at the procurement and supply chain show. Just a review of the show. We were there a couple of weeks ago in London's Tobacco Docks. It was a really full and stimulating couple of days with some of the top names from across procurement and supply chain. The theme of the event was risk and resilience, and we had some really outstanding speakers taking part. And we'd like to take this opportunity actually to thank all our speakers and our attendees and everyone who attended, both in person and virtually. It was a hybrid event, so thanks to everybody for that. Just a few sort of headlines from the show. One of our, in fact, opening the entire event was Frank Sudan, head of digital supply chain at SAP. Now, Frank spoke about how vital tech is to supply chain resilience, but he warned against the dangers of going for quick wins. He said this only leads to Frankenstein enterprises, by which he meant enterprises that improve piecemeal and don't join everything up in a cohesive kind of way. And we also heard from Jonathan Kohlhauer, who's supply chain strategy lead at Digital Transformation Specialist UST. Now, Jonathan's was talking about how the best response of organizations to supply chain disruption is to engage in private trading networks, by which he means networks of suppliers who can communicate with one another across multiple tiers, not just from tier 1 to tier 2, but a network of communication between multiple tiers of the value chain. And then no event really would be complete without Sherry Heinisch, who is exec partner at IBM's Sustainable Supply Chain. And Sherry delivered a really captivating presentation on how sustainability is not somebody else's problem. And she talked about how the sustainability trailblazers are using digitalization to make sustainability viable, visible, and actionable.
Thanks, Sean. That was, those 2 days were interesting and action-packed couple of days for us, when they were very, very interesting with a lot of great speakers. And what's your second pick from the May issue?
Yeah, I'll just do this really briefly. Georgia, it was just a feature I wrote on predictive maintenance. So again, we're going back to IoT here. So as we're speaking to Ivo about that, predictive maintenance, for those who may not know, is just using real-time data to keep a track on assets in the field, could be anywhere in the world. And I spoke to Andy Hancock, who's head of SAP's Supply Chain Center of Excellence and a former guest on this show. And, Andy just gave me some really fascinating insights on to just all the different ways that IoT is being used to, maintain machines and processes and, far-flung parts of the world. And he also talked about the importance of data, not overloading your systems with data. It's the exceptions that you're looking for with data, not the norms. So it's the things that aren't working properly that you need to flag up with IoT in the field, with assets that might be malfunctioning. You don't want to be drowning in lots of data that's telling you everything's working properly. So yeah, it was really insightful and just a glimpse of just the way things are going at the moment. And anyway, Georgia, what about Procurement Magazine? What have you got sort of lined up for us there?
So one I wanted to highlight this week is a feature where I spoke to multiple leading executives from the Hacker Group, EY and Gartner, and it was looking at when is the right time to bring in a procurement consultant, when for people to bring in that outside help. So in the feature we discussed how it's likely that disruption in the industry is going to continue. It's going to follow the trends of what we've already seen, coming from multiple directions. So it's really going to put procurement and supply chains, now more than ever under the microscope for many organizations. So it's sort of times like these that particularly an organization might turn to a consultant to help navigate those sort of murky waters. The consultants I spoke to highlighted 3 core reasons in mind as to why you'd look to a consultant, and those were speed to outcome, capability gaps, and access to innovation as to why you then would need a consultant's help. We also looked at good procurement practices in general, and how organizations can utilize consultants to drive transparency and visibility and intelligence within their organizations to again navigate these disruptions that seem to be increasing at the moment.
Thanks for that, Georgia. And we've got in these magazines, we've got so many great interviews and features in every issue. So make sure you do visit the websites for both Supply Chain Digital and Procurement Magazine. You can read the magazines and also watch a lot of the video content as well. Now why don't we take a look at the results of the poll, Georgia?
So to refresh everyone's memory, the poll was in what area has the Internet of Things had the biggest impact on supply chain. So did you want to discuss the results a bit, Sean?
Yeah, so what we have, the poll answers were location tracking, 51% of the vote, contingency planning, 25, storage monitoring, 20. So a sizable proportion of people going for location tracking, and it is immensely important, I think, especially in industries like energy and chemicals, where multinational companies have so many physical assets in the field that their supply chain can be complex and truly global, and keeping track of things and making sure that everything's still on track is immensely important for them. I don't know. I mean, what kind of results were you expecting, Georgia? Did that pan out as you thought it would?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see. I did sort of think maybe contingency planning might be a bit higher in the percentage. Just after the last couple of years, that might be quite a key contender. But I guess kind of a lot of these different elements brought together make those contingency plans. So it's kind of so maybe like it's going to be more like a combination of various different ones that are going to be needed for that particular topic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like we were saying earlier, you could probably have 10 polls on Internet of Things. But yeah, well, thank you everyone for who took part in that poll. Thank you very much for your participation. Now we have some important dates for your diary. October will see us heading to the Queen Elizabeth II Centre in London for a new expo style event. This is going to be called Supply Chain Live London 2022. It's like our most recent show. It's a hybrid event, so you'll be able to attend in person and also remotely. It's going to be held from the 12th to the 13th of October, and it's going to incorporate 2 expo style zones, one for Supply Chain Live and the other for Procurement Live. So looking forward to that one. Well, sadly, that's all we've got time for this episode. So we hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you ever so much for interacting with us, whether you were watching live or took part in the poll. And also remember that this show is available on demand. So please do share it with your colleagues, or anybody else interested in supply chain and procurement. And a big thank you to Georgia and to our special guest, Ivo Rook, who's CEO and president of Once, and also to Scott Birch, our content director, who came in live from Orlando at the Sapphire conference. And also thank you to Ernie and the rest of the video production team, Justin and the design team for the great looking magazines, and also Kaylee and the marketing team. This has been a BizClick Media Group production. We will see you next time.